However, he thinks that what he did was legal, halachic, and even right, because he suspects. I want you to understand what his suspicion stems from. There were clashes between the two houses. There were killings between the two houses. The beginning of this episode, the Tanakh repeats again that there's tension between Binyamin and Yehuda. Okay? The problem, though, with Yoav, and we're going to raise this question here to see at the end of the chapter, if you would ask David, did Yoav do the right thing? Of course he's going to say no. In fact, the problem that we have with Yoav is what? Does he think that David is not in favor of what he did? Of course he did. What is it considered halachically when you go up against the wish of the king? What is that called? It's called Mored b'Malchut. You're rebelling up against the kingdom. Do you know what the consequences is? What does the Rambam write? Based on the Gemara Masechah Sanhedrin, if you rebel against the king, what do you think the consequences? You lose your salary.
It's the reason to live.
No, you're not going to live. You're absolutely right. You're not going to live. Now let me ask you something. Can David bring him to death?
If he wanted to, because he's a king.
Okay, so before we get to the special laws of a king, were there two witnesses? And was there a forewarning before Yoav killed Avner? Did anyone warn him, listen, if you do this, you're going up against the king? No one. There was no forewarning. No forewarning, no two witnesses. Therefore, halachically, as far as dinei nefashot is considered, the laws of capital law, David cannot put him to death. You, though, brought a different point. There's a special din of the king. Okay? The king, if he sees a breach happening in society, he has the power given to him by Hashem, by God, in the Torah, that he's allowed to punish not according to law. Okay? However, what do we see here? That David does not rebuke him. He does curse him. He does curse him. And now we're going to see how David acts or does not act in this last part of the parak. Let's continue from Pasuk Lamed Aleph 31. Vayomer David el Yoav el kol ha'am asher ito kiru v'gdechem v'chigru sakim v'sibdu lifnei Avner v'melech David olech achrei hamita. Gentlemen, it's very clear that David does not want to show any sign that he was planning this negligence here, that he was part of this major crime. No, not only is not part of the crime, I'm mourning, and he's commanding everyone, including Yoav, first and foremost, tear your clothing, wear sackcloth, eulogize. They're right now going in the procession of the funeral to bring Avner Ben Ner to burial inside Hebron, not in a family burial, but right now in the royal city of Judah, of Yehuda. Okay? So here, David wants to make sure, above and beyond really what the call of law is, because it's not so clear that a king is allowed to stop his acting as a king, to rent his clothing, sit down maybe in mourning and eulogize. It's not a simple thing right now. But it could be that David, what he's doing is called a hora'at shah. He's making an instruction for this moment only, and he's going lifnim mishurat adin. He's going above and beyond the law. Okay? And that he's acting in mourning, tearing his clothing, and as a result, Pasuk Lamed Bet, vayikberu et Avner bechevron, vayisa hamelech et kolo, vayefk el kever Avner, vayifku kol ha'am. Okay? The same king that invited Avner to join hands to build one mamlacha, one kingdom, and here it is, Yoav came and messed up the situation for him. There's not one kingdom right now. We don't know really what the consequences are going to be, the reaction from northern Israel. Okay? David now Instead of continuing the peace process, David now has to go to a funeral. Okay? And he doesn't want to act that he's part of this act of Yoav, who's a scoundrel in his eyes, he's a villain in his eyes. And you're still asking the question, why doesn't David punish? He has the law of the ability to punish, not according to the law of the Torah. We're going to see the answer at the end of the chapter in a moment. But right now, David is going beyond the law. Mourning, renting his clothing, asking others to join. He wants to show public relations, I'm not part of this terrible act. Pasuk Lamed Gimel, Vayikonein HaMelech El Avner, Vayomar, Hakemot Naval Yamut Avner. The Melech is delivering, again the third time, HaMelech. Okay? Interesting, in Lamed Aleph, when he's ordering everyone to tear their clothing, he's not called a Melech. Do you notice this? But here in Lamed Gimel he is. In Lamed Aleph, when he's going above and beyond and tearing his clothing, he's not acting like a king. He's going, Lefnei Mishurat Adin. But now in Lamed Gimel, it's like a royal message. How is it that Avner died the death in the hands of a scoundrel, a naval, a villain? In other words, he wants to publicly, royally make a statement that I'm not part of this. Maybe can save or salvage support, because like some of you said yesterday, the natural reaction of people in Binyamin is, David is behind this plan. David is the one inviting him out. This is, this is an espionage plan to kill Avner. Let's go on, and he continues in his kina, in his lamentation, Lamed Daled, Yadecha lo asurot. Your hands weren't tied up. Remember, Avner is a tremendous, courageous leader. Viraglecha lo nechushtaim ugashu. Your feet also were not tied up like in iron chains and so on. Kinpo lifnei bnei avla nafalta. But you fell, okay, like you fell before dishonest people, unjust people, bnei avla. Okay, that's a common term that we use even today, God forbid, when there's a terrorist attack, and we call the terrorist bnei avla, and so on and so forth. Vayosifu chol ha'am lifkot alav. The entire group there, at the funeral meeting, they're even crying more. They realize what a great military leader we lost. Pasuk Lamed Hey. Vayavo chol ha'am lehavrot et David lechem be'or hayom. Vayishava David le'mor ko yaseh li Elohim v'cho Yosef kim lifnei vo hashemesh et am lechem ochol me'uma. Some of us know that there's a mitzvah when a family member comes back after the burial of the death. There's a mitzvah lehavrot et ha'avel. What is lehavrot et ha'avel? It's called Su'udat Havra. Shulchan Aruch. Su'udat Havra is the first meal the mourners eat upon return from the funeral. And we bring over things which are circular around cycle of life and cycle of death, like hard-boiled egg or lentils, something of that nature is brought. Very simple food, some bread, some hard-boiled egg. That's the mitzvah Sudat Havra. Usually people that are close to the people sitting in Shiva are the ones bringing it over. And that's what they eat, of course, sitting down on the floor because they've begun Avelut mourning. And here, interesting, the support that David has. Because what do we notice here in Lamed Hey? Okay, they realize that David is like a mourner. Now, David is not one of the 7 relatives of Avner. But on a national level, we see here that people recognize that David was not part of this plan. And he is like in a state of national mourning. Okay? And that they're bringing him the Suda. But David takes an oath. He wants to make life harder on himself. And he takes an oath in God's name that until sun goes down, he's not going to taste anything whatsoever. Why do you think that David is making this?
To emphasize that he doesn't have any connection with Abner doing this?
Very good. That's one point. There's another point the Malbim brings here, one of the later Parshanim, that the fact that David is accepting upon himself a fast. When we lose a Gadol, and you know what? Avner was considered, the Gemara says, one of the Gedolei Torah. The fact that he was a sniper specialist, or he was a tremendous general and leader, it doesn't do, Safra v'Saifa. The Talmud talks about a person who's willing to hold on to the Sefer and also the sword. He had great abilities both in Torah, in the Beit Midrash, and here in the battlefield. So David is accepting upon himself a fast. Like there's some people do when a Gadol in Torah is lost, he accepts a fast. And that's what David is doing here. He's doing more than mourning. He's like accepting a fast on the loss of Avner. Time goes by. What is the reaction of this great event that could bring more trouble? Pasuk Lamed Vav v'chol ha'am hikiru vayitav b'neihem kechol asher asa melech be'einei chol ha'am tov. Look, have you ever heard of the word politics before? There could be a lot of people in Hebron, in Yehuda, in Binyamin, that are angry at David and still think that he's a double agent. He's really together with Yoav against Avner, and to be critical of him and to be angry of him that maybe he's beyond the command. Therefore comes the Tanakh and tells us unequivocally that the nation here recognizes that David had nothing to do. His hands are clean, the truth is clear, and you can't look. It says, King David says in Tehillim, I just forgot the exact words, that sheker doesn't have raglaim. Have you heard of that expression? A lie has no feet, meaning it will have no base. Sooner or later, the lie will be revealed. That's what we say about sheker. La sheker ein raglaim. On the other hand, King David says regarding the truth, emet me'eretz titzmach. A pasuk in Psalms, the truth will sprout and grow from the land. Here, apparently time is passing and people don't see that there's a lie here involved whatsoever. Rather, the truth is recognized that whatever David was doing, it's good in their eyes, meaning he wasn't really part of this plan and he was against it. He's not putting on an act, he's not putting on a show, but rather he's true. How do the people accept this? Okay? Pasuk Lamed Zayin, Vayedu chol ha'am v'chol Yisrael bayom hahu ki lo hayta me'hamelech lamit et Avner ben Ner. Okay? Notice from Lamed Vav Hakara to Lamed Zayin Yedi'ah. I could distinguish, I can have an understanding of what happened, but it's not yet Yedi'ah. Yedi'ah is perfect knowledge. Yedi'ah is knowing something without a doubt, having totally certainty. You see the verb vayedu kolam, everyone knows. But not only I think the Am here is the group of people living in Hebron, Yehuda. But here it says v'chol Yisrael. In other words, David's base of truth is widened. People consider him sincere. He's not putting on an act. It's Kol Yisrael. They all know. What do they know? They all know. Okay? It's clear to them. It's fine that he wasn't part of the killing of Ner. So right now, what's happening after the first 2 years of the division between Beit Binyamin, the house of Shaul, and the house of David, in spite of this great obstacle, the killing of Avner, who is a national hero, in spite of the fact that everyone knows that David accepted his initiative, and we saw him being called the king based on that, it's clear to everyone how long, we don't know, it's not pertinent for us to know how long it took, but the nation, not only Yehuda, the nation is behind David, that he had no part in it. And here David makes another public statement in Lamed Chet. And again, what is he called? From a royal point of view, Vayomer HaMelech. Vayomer HaMelech el Avadav. Avadav means his legislators, his advisors. Halo tidu. Kisar v'gadol nafal hayom hazeh b'Yisrael. Okay? David does not stop. He doesn't say, okay, we mourned, we're finished. No. He wants everyone to know the loss, the great loss that Klal Yisrael has lost. This is not a loss of Binyamin. This is not a loss because Raj only of Yoav. This is a national loss. Sar v'gadol nafal hayom b'Yisrael. In other words, David is putting things on a national scale and saying this is a tremendous loss for the nation. And now, let's get to your question. Your question was well taken. Does David have a problem? Soldiers, grab him. Let's bring him to the center of town in Hebron. Let's make a gallows and hang him in front of everyone. Halachically, can David do that? Of course. He's a melech. If he wants to, he can punish where the Beit in the Sanhedrin cannot punish. But David says, I know who I am, and I know who my nephews are. Watch this. Pasuk Lamed at the end of the chapter. As the end of his statement that we've lost a major national leader, whereas I, va'anochi, hayom, rach, I'm soft. Umashuach melech, I know that I'm what? Anointed as king, but I am rach. Ken? I'm soft. V'anashim ha'ela b'nei tzruya, kashim mimeni. Yishalem Adonai le'osei hara'a kira'ato. David, remember, let's try to put things now together and describe the personality who we're dealing with in David. We've been learning these last two chapters that David is not the person that acts that maybe according to what logic would dictate to you, that he would be an opportunist, take advantage, do some PR work, try to consolidate more power. No, David does not act here according to human logic. David wants to slowly acquire the trust, the support of the nation of Israel. Not by doing PR work and hiring a public relations firm to publicize this and publicize that. David truthfully, okay, like it says in Megillat Esther, Nikarim divrei emet. He's a man of truth, David. He has patience. He's waiting. When more and more support comes, b'chavod, I'll take it. I'll allow it to happen. I'll accept it. I'll use it. But to put himself or impose himself on others, that's not David. That's number one. David doesn't tell stories. He's very careful in the words he says here. The truth is, yes, he could have punished Joab. But David says, you know what? I can't do it. I'm a softie. He says, I am soft. I'm not built for this. Because these people, my nephews, why? Like we say, in baking terms, they're tough cookies. Okay? In a baking term, they're very, you know what a tough cookie is? Okay. And that's true. Even though there is nephews, they're called B'nei Tzruya, they are the children of his sister. Kashim mimeni. Therefore, only later, on the deathbed of David, the beginning of Sefer Menachem, when we start reading Menachem Aleph and David is on his deathbed, he makes an oath to Shlomo Melech that Yoav has to be punished. One of the first things Shlomo has to make sure that Yoav will be taken care of. And therefore, right now he delivers the law to Hashem. Yishalem Hashem lo se'ara kira'ato. God is going to deliver the punishment. So, although it sounds a little similar when Shaul took office as king. Do you remember that when Shaul took office as king, there were Bnei Belial, there were people without a yoke accepting his leadership, and they were bad-mouthing Shaul. What did Shaul say as far as taking law and judgment against those Bnei Belial? Do you remember reading that? Today's a happy day. I've been anointed as king, and so on and so forth. I don't want to, why mess up today's celebrations? That was the wording of Shmuel, if I'm not mistaken. Here, although he does say Mashuach Melech, doesn't mean I was anointed today. But I know that I'm a king, but I can't take the law right now and cause B'nai Tzuya punishments. I'm not that way. It's not me. It's not me. You know what? Ashrei HaMelech, happy is the king who knows his strong points, yet recognizes his weak points as well. It's a man of truth. He's not, I can do this, I this. Every fourth word out of his mouth is I, or me. It's not David. He knows that he's lacking. With that, we ended this chapter. Let's begin for a few moments the next chapter. Perek Dalet. What's happening on the other side of the curtain in the area of Binyamin? News gets out, Avner has been killed. Vayishma ben Shaul, kimet Avner bechevron, vayirpu yadav, v'chol Yisrael nivhalu. Notice how the leader of Binyamin is coined or nicknamed here. Is he called a Melech? No. Is his name even mentioned? No. All he is what? Ben Shaul. In other words, now that Avner's military leader is no longer with him and he's dead, Vayirpu Yadav, the hands of Ishbosheth are getting weaker and weaker. We learned this already in the former chapter, but now, as a fact, he's getting even weak. The fact that his name is not even mentioned, and that he's not even called king. Okay, all this is adding to the weakness of him. And v'chol Yisrael nivhalu. Israel can't believe what's going on. Okay, meaning the people living in northern Israel. Okay, if they're in a state of trepidation, that means they have less ability to support Ishbosheth. So right now, we understand nationally the situation of Binyamin and the other tribes is going down. And now we learn about two people, two sons of a man called Rimon. Ushnei Anashim, and not just Anashim, Sarei Gedudim hayu. They were heads of battalions, large, something like a division of soldiers. Hayu ben Shaul. It's a very difficult pasuk. It's like the word Liben Shaul. These two guys are high-ranking officers. They were officers of units for the son of Shaul. Again, he's not called king. Shem echad ba'ana v'shem hasheni rechav. B'nei Rimon. They're the children of their father called Rimon. Ha-be'eroti. Be'eroti, some say, the part of Binyamin, today called in Arabic, El-Bira. El-Bira. No, it's not a beer commercial for Budweiser beer. No, it's not. But Be'eroti is an area that some say that's El-Bira today, next to Ramallah. In any event, we're going to learn later that the Giv'onim are living in this area. Ki gam Be'erot techashev Binyamin, this town of Be'erot, is part of Binyamin. Next pasuk, really not clear. Vayivrechu Be'erotim gitayma. Vayushem garim ad hayom hazeh. What in the world does this have to do with anything? That the people of Be'eroti have fled to a place called Gitayma. Okay? What's unclear here? Huh? It's obvious what's unclear, that why did they leave? And why is it important or significant for us to know that they left from Be'eroti to a place called Gitayma? Okay? So we see Rashi, there are several explanations. Yes, you have an idea?
Gitayma, what is this is where the Gibyonim lived?
It's not far. Some say Gitayma is the area of Ramleh, getting closer to the coast, and it's not far from the area where the Plishtim have control of. But what is this pasuk doing here? What's its significance? Very, very, very blurry. So it seems that as long, this has been the background situation. When Shaul died in the war, against the Plishtim on top of the Gilboa mountains. It could be that Jews living in areas around the Plishtim area fled further. So maybe the Beirotim were near the Shiltona Plishti area. And this happened now in the last few months or so, that they're going further away because they're afraid of the Plishtim. It could be to show us fear of the Plishtim. Whereas in Pasuk Dalet, V'liyonatan ben Shaul, ben Nechei Raglaim. What do we care? Yonatan, who was killed in the war on the Gilboa mountains together with his father and his other brother, he has a handicapped son. What is this, a diary book? What do we need this for? How old is he? Ben 5 shanim haya bevo shmuat Shaul v'Yonatan miYisrael, v'tisrei omanto v'tanos, v'yi b'chovza lanos, v'yipol, v'yipaseach, u'shmo Mefivoshet. Gentlemen, Yonatan's son was 5 years old when he heard the terrible news that his father and grandfather were killed on the Gilboa mountains. And the woman taking care of him during the time of the war, when she fled because of the fear of the Plishtim maybe coming to them as well, so the 5-year-old killed fell, and he became what? Vayipasach, which is? Handicapped. Okay? Something which is permanent. And his name is Mefivoshet. What, by the way, in Sefer Divrei Yamim is called Meiriv HaBa'al. What in the world is the Tanakh sharing with us? So there are those that say, okay, the beginning of the chapter, what's happening to the kingdom of Ishboshet? It's getting weaker and weaker. If you were to ask, is there any figure in the Binyamin area that's capable of taking power? Is there anyone that can stand up and be an alternative to David in Hebron and let the house of Binyamin continue to rule over itself? Maybe that's what the Tanakh is coming to teach us. The Tanakh is telling us that on the one hand, we're going to learn about this espionage plan of Bnei Rechav, but the truth is, there's no one else there. Yonatan was killed. His brother was killed. Yonatan has a son, but he's not capable. He's handicapped. And now we're ready to learn about the assassination plan. Pasuk Hey, Vayilchu b'nei Rimona be'eroti, rechavu va'ana, vayavo kechom hayom el beit Ishboshet, vehu shochev et mishkav hatzoraim. So these two military leaders, the sons of Rimon, now they've arrived. Where's the palace? Where's the house of Ishboshet? Do you remember? It's not here in Binyamin. It's on Machanaim. It's on the other side of the Jordan River. So they're Machanaim, and it happens to be, what is it called? The siesta? What is it called? The mid-nap, the napping of the middle of the day. What do they call it?
Spanish siesta.
Whatever. In Hebrew they call it a yashnatz. Yashnatz. Sheinat Zoraim. A midday rest. Shnatz. Okay? So here you have support if you want to take a midday rest. Okay? At 2 o'clock or 2:30, lie down for half an hour, get some more koach. You can see the king did it. Well, if the king did it, maybe you can do it as well. But it's not so clear what's going on. V'heina, bo, atoch habayit, lokei chitim, vayakuhu el hachomesh. Who was like buyers of wheat? Who is killing who? And where? V'rechav uvana achiv nimlato. It's interesting how these psukim are written, some of them, in a very unclear way. Okay? But there has to be a reason. We're going to have to investigate and try to understand why is it this way. But it's clear to us now, after putting these psukim together, where we have another problem with Pasuk Zayin, which seems like a repetition. Let's just read. We'll end the short today with this. Vayavo abayit, v'shochev amitato, b'chadar mishkavo, vayaku, vayimitu, vayasiru et rosho, vayakhu et rosho, vayachu derech harava kol halayla. Assassination twice? Didn't they interfere and try to kill Ishboshet in Pasuk Vav? So why does it say they're coming into the house? as if it's the second time. Things to be very, very unclear here. And question is, why are they killing him? What's their interest? What do they want to do? Do they have a good? What is clear here now, that leaders are being killed, which is an unfortunate measure. And we're not even talking about Texas here. And people are taking the law into his hands. We'll continue B'ezrat Hashem with this the next.